In the War of 1812, the British destroyed the American Library of Congress. Thomas Jefferson uh, offered his personal library as a replacement to it. Um, he had more than double the amount of books that the original Library of Congress had that was lost. The original Library of Congress that was lost had about 3,000 volumes. Thomas Jefferson had over 6,000 books in his personal library, which is a lot. Um, when my oldest son was in elementary school, they handed out these accomplishments for different students, most likely to become an athlete, most likely to, own your own business, most likely to this and that. And one of them was most likely to read 1,000 books in their lifetime. And I thought, it was one of the first times I really thought about how many books do people read in their life? Could Thomas Jefferson have made it through 6,000 books in his life? Sure, he could have. That would have been a real lot. I mean, a book a week, if you do 50 books a year for 20 years, is 1,000 books. So if your adult life, if you read from, say, 15 to 75, you're not going to get through 6,000. But someone who's reading a lot of books could read a couple thousand books over the course of their life. Uh, Thomas Jefferson having 6,000 books in his personal library. Let's just do some sort of back of the envelope math. Let's call that 1 inch per book. So like 500 feet of books. So if you had 5 shelves, 5 levels on a bookshelf, you have 100 feet of bookshelf. I mean, that's a couple of rooms with just the walls surrounded of bookshelves. That is a lot of bookshelves. I have a couple of bookshelves in my house. And although I read a lot on e-readers now because my eyesight isn't the best and it's hard to read the small print in paperbacks, I do have some books that I have quite a lot of books, probably a couple hundred. But they're mostly books that have some sentimental value to me, or are, the older books in my collection, or are books I like to pull down and look at every now and then. They're all books that I've read, or for the most part. There's probably 10 or 15 books. Usually those don't find their way to the bookshelf yet. Usually those sit on a stack on some, kitchen table or bedside table. The bookshelves are the place where I keep the books that I've read, which is probably different than what Thomas Jefferson was doing. He probably had bookshelves full of books he didn't read. Although a lot of the books I read, if they're paperbacks, they end up at a paperback exchange or some kind of they end up somewhere else. I just don't have the room for everything. And I was thinking about this the other day, that it's sort of silly to me to have shelves and shelves of books that I've read. Why why not have shelves and shelves of books that I haven't read? If only for the historical legacy of this is what we've done with books. Books are something of value and you keep them around, or it seems silly to have a library of books that you've already read. I'm curious to know, of all the books in your house, what's the percentage of books that you've read versus books that you haven't read? And wouldn't it make more sense? I mean, if you finish a book, wouldn't it be nice to have a whole bookshelf of options ready to go? Shouldn't it be 99% of the books in your house you haven't read? You're about to, you're going to. Once you're done with this one, you put that one, you give that one to the used bookstore to sell, or you know, put it in a paperback exchange or something, um, and you move on to the next one. You have all of these options, right? How silly of a thing is it to keep a whole bunch of stories that I'm not going to reread that I've already read. Just a thought, just an idea. But I would very much like to hear, of all the books in your house or apartment, what's the percentage of books that you have read versus books that you haven't read? Is it 50-50? Is it mostly books you haven't read and you get rid of them once you've read them? Is it all books you've read and it's just the one book you're currently going through, and as soon as you finish that, you go buy another one? Um, yeah. Share in the comments, or make another video and link it so we can hear what everyone else has for read versus unread books.